Let's go out, we'll take no prisoners.
Welcome to episode 3 of Unleashed, Producer's Guide to Indie Film. Hi, my name's Avi Federgreen, and today I have to say that I have the indie film man of indie film, Stu Stone, who is an actor, he's a writer, he's a director, and he's a producer who's done some amazing work over the last few years. He calls Winnipeg a second home, I guess you could say. Welcome, everybody, Stu Stone.
Hello. Yes, it's great to be here. Episode 3.
Episode 3, yes, episode 3. And I'm grateful to have this awesome producer named Mike Boone, who's also at the wheel here and who's going to help us and chime in whenever he feels so.
The legendary Toronto Mike.
That's right, Toronto Mike.
I prefer CNN Mike, if you don't mind.
That is true.
That's right,
well,
CNN.
Yeah.
Wow. We could talk about that for hours, couldn't we?
I mean, Avi, you're already a mogul who has crossed over into all facets of the entertainment industry. It's only natural for you to start a podcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And one thing you may not know is I have obviously a record label, but I now have a publishing company.
Wow.
So hopefully, optioning some books, publishing them, but then turning them into film.
That's a great idea. You always got great ideas.
Well, listen, one of my great ideas was to make a movie with you and Adam, but that hasn't culminated yet. So I'm here to, sell myself to you today.
Perfect.
Because, you guys rock the indie feature world, especially with my good friend Tony Napo.
Yes.
Who we all love.
Yes.
So why don't we just dig in? And I guess my first question to you is, obviously you've been an actor for a long, long time. You've been in over 100 projects as an actor. I'm assuming you started writing and developing projects that you could obviously be in as well, but they were stories that came to you that you wanted to see happen. And you partnered with Adam Rodness, and you co-write a lot of these projects together and produce them, and I guess you both act in them as well. What got you to move to behind the camera? What was the trigger for you?
It's interesting because, and thank you for asking. As you pointed out, I grew up an actor. I was like a child actor,
right? And
at some point, I became a teenaged actor, and at some point, I was like a young male actor. But, if you do something so long, you kind of get like burned out from it. Like, at some point, and I'm not disparaging the industry or people that do get out of bed for stuff like this, but at some point you're not excited about going on Doritos commercials, auditions anymore.
Right.
And you're not, the frustrating process of being an actor is really, the amount of times that you hear no. It kind of trains you for the rest of your life,
right.
Which is filled with disappointment.
Right.
But you're at some point, you hit a wall of well, what the hell am I doing here? Right. And I was in LA. Yeah. I was actually doing pretty well by all standards. Right. Getting good roles and had a show on MTV, and reach the pinnacle of what you can accomplish. Right. But as soon as I had that moment where I got to do my own show, and I got to see the other side of the table, Avi.
Yeah.
It changed everything.
Right.
Because when I was on the other side of the table, I saw what it was going on the other side of the table, right. Which was that like most decisions were already made before an actor even came in the room.
Right.
So I was like, huh. And, Mike's showing a picture of myself and Jamie Kennedy, who was my creative partner at the time. Jamie kind of inspired me. To make my own opportunities, to create our own opportunities. Yeah. So that opportunity that Jamie and I did, we ended up doing a show, and we had a rap album, and we did a whole spiel. But that we made that all happen.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that you have to do in this business. You, of all people, can speak to that as well. But, creating your own opportunities, that's what this was born out of.
Right.
And Adam and I got together, and we were trying to come up with some way to create our own opportunity, which led to, back to Toronto, where there's a lot of resources here to get going. If you know the right paperwork.
Yeah, and the paperwork. Yeah.
And then that's how it sort of started, and it's been almost a 10-year run now. being on this side based out of Toronto, and I love it and I don't love it and I love it and I don't love it.
Right.
But you know how it is.
Yeah, I do. And, obviously the traditional funding system doesn't necessarily work for people like you and me and Adam.
No.
And we don't get to tell the stories that we really want to tell, which is another reason why we do what we do, is so that we can tell the stories that we want to tell without any intervention from government agencies and things like that just basically, to be honest, aren't funding the right projects, the commercialized kind of projects that you and I generally are making now. And they're funding mostly artistic films, and stuff that really isn't marketable. I can speak as a distributor when I talk about that, and I watch the films that get made at the lower budget level, like under 3.5 million.
Which I wish that I had, by the way.
Right.
3.5 million.
Yeah, well, we all wish we had 3.5 million for sure. I used to make $6 million movies like Score a Hockey Musical. Now I'm making movies under $300,000.
Yeah. How do you like doing that, by the way?
I love it. I wouldn't go back to the 6 million. I think the more money you have, the more headaches you have.
More money, more problems.
Yes. And more creative juice in the lower budget, more collaboration with your crew and your cast.
Well, I find that, and you might agree, but I find that when you are working on a lower sort of budget level like that,
yeah,
the people that are working on your film project or whatever it is that you're working on are a lot more passionate. They're a lot more invested because they're trying to make something happen. You know what I mean?
Well, we're also providing lead roles for actors that wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to have a lead role.
Listen, if it wasn't for low budget horror movies, most 80% of actors in Canada would never get a lead role.
Right. And I mean, look, my film Home Free, which we made for $350,000, which has probably one of the best ensemble casts in Canadian history, in my opinion. These are accomplished actors, some of which have had over 50 years of being an actor, some over 25 years, and they don't get these kind of parts, and they crave these kind of parts.
Right. And
it's films like Home Free that give them the opportunity to sink their teeth into a script, and that the producers and director care about their input in these kinds of scripts. Most actors, as you will attest, you come, you deliver your lines, and you go home.
Yeah.
You don't get a say in the word, necessarily all the words that are on the page. And that's not how I work. That's not how I've wanted to work for 30 years. And by doing the lower budget types of films that I do, the actors have skin in the game.
Yeah. And there's also a faster route to recoupment as well.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
But, for Canadian actors, a lot of the times the big American productions that come here, I would say 99.999% of the time that the American projects come here, by the time they're casting their roles for Canadians, you are so far down the call sheet that you're not even getting an opportunity to do, if you get 3 lines or something like that, you're like, it's a blessing.
Yes.
So yeah, like you're saying, these opportunities to get involved in a juicier, meatier role, getting a chance to get some experience, getting a chance to get some tape, as they say.
Right.
These are experiences that wouldn't exist without smaller, independent sort of productions.
Right. Now, I mean, based on the track record of the stuff that you and Adam have done, are there projects that you wish you would have made that maybe are not as commercial, but are more, soulful for you that you haven't made that you want to make? And why haven't you made them?
Well, I mean, listen, if I was if I was to tap into do more sort of artistic, soulful stuff, I'd actually get funded. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. I should do that. I think that, we have dabbled in, I did a documentary, with a couple, with Harv and some other folks many years ago.
Which is a great document, I will say. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, it was called Jack of All Trades, and it was meant to be investigative piece about the baseball card industry that like ends up turning into a dramatic story about me reconnecting with my father, who was estranged for many years.
Right.
And that I'd still say is probably the best piece of work that I've ever been involved in.
Right.
And it's like you said, that is because it has heart and it has soul.
Right.
The stuff that I'm doing with Adam is a little bit more comedic and was a lot more comedic, but there is something to it that is from within of us. There is like a hybrid style of filmmaking that we apply to it, where we're using real people, and we have to go to ACTRA and get permission to shoot it a certain way.
Right.
But we're using real people, and there is sort of like a smart, intelligent approach to doing these types of comedies. But yes, obviously, I think as I get older and as I get more chutzpah, I guess.
Yeah.
I will probably want to delve into more of like serious subject matter.
Right.
I have been working for the last 4 or 5 years on a show called Dark Side of the Ring,
which I love. I will tell you, guys, I grew up in the wrestling community with Stu Hart, and I've been to the dungeon.
Oh, amazing.
And I'm a big wrestling fan, and I really, really appreciate the show that you guys have put together.
So, and thank you so much, and credit to Jason Eisner, who's a Canadian filmmaker as well, who's one of the creators of that show.
Right.
And but that I've been able to sort of express. I get that heart out of my system by working on that show.
Right.
So it's like by the time I'm done doing that show, like all I want to do is laugh with Rodness for like a couple months in Winnipeg.
Right.
But I do think there will be a time that I'll get to tell some sort of deeper and bigger stories. Have you found that to be a challenge for you?
Well, I mean, Home Free took 9 years to get made.
Yeah.
Why
did it take 9 years, do you suppose?
Well, I just originally it was brought to me by a writer director who wanted to make me to produce it, and we just couldn't get the script where we wanted to be, so we literally shelved it. She went off to write and direct other shorts and other things, and I obviously kept producing. And then in 2019, when I made my first short, Red Balloon, I got the bug for wanting to make a feature, and this was the feature that when I was trying to find a feature, I remembered the script, and I said, I reread it, and then I said, I think I can make it.
May I interject? Producer Toronto Mike here. Sorry for interjecting, but since you last recorded an episode of this fine podcast, Avi, I have seen this film you're referring to, and I just want to let you know, I thought it was beautiful. Like the whole audience was in tears. It was very emotional. I kept saying to myself, Avi made this. Like, this is a remarkable piece of art. I'm just here to give you kudos that it's an excellent film. And I was honored to be there and see it. And I can't wait till Stu sees it.
I'd love to see it. I mean, and that's why we do this, right?
Right. I mean, I couldn't get it funded. And the last time I applied 2 years in a row with Telefilm, they turned me down. And the second time they turned me down.
Why did they turn you down? Did they tell you?
Well, first of all, they said it was the best script that they read, but that they were oversubscribed in my category, which we know what that means.
Yes.
And
what does that mean?
That means male, white male director.
and
that's
the room goes
silence.
The silence
Speaking
is deafening.
volumes.
Yeah.
And so the last time they turned me down, I literally turned my computer off, went outside with a bottle of bourbon and a bottle of pills, and I was going to end it.
What?
Okay, so this is the bomb, and eventually I will get the great Avi Federgreen on Toronto Mike to explore further. But this is the bomb he dropped on us after the film. There was a Q&A with the director, Avi, and the cast, and he tells this story. And I was sitting there, and I just went solo, and I watched this emotional film, this beautiful film, and I'm sitting there, and then I had no idea, and Avi drops this bomb. So I'm glad you guys are talking about it, because I couldn't believe my ears when I heard this story.
Yeah, so I mean, I felt like the industry had turned their back on me, that I had given so much to the industry. I've produced over 70 films. I produced some films that Telefilm asked me to EP for them to know that their money was in good hands. And I asked for $160,000. That's all I asked for. And I didn't get it. And I just said, screw it, I'm out. If I can't make this movie, then what's the point? I've made as many films as I have. It's not like I'm, every film is kind of the same, how you finance it
Sure.
and how you put it together and all that stuff. This was my passion project. And if I was going to make one more film in my career, this is the one I wanted to make.
So what was the thing that stopped you?
Money. I mean,
No. I'm talking about.
I went outside and I was literally by myself because my wife was up north in Keswick with my daughter, who was going to day camp up there
Sure.
in the summer. And she called me to say goodnight. And basically, I was completely smashed. And I'd been through 3/4 of a bottle of bourbon. And I was actually at that place where, okay, now it's time to.
Oh my God.
And she literally kept me on the phone until I literally passed out. And I woke up in the morning on my back porch on the floor to a phone call from my father-in-law, who basically asked me to come over. I went over to his place and he said, "Fuck Telefilm. I'm going to give you the money. No strings attached. Go make your movie."
Wow.
And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here with you today. And
That's
the movie
amazing.
Wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
I mean, listen, obviously I don't love that your mind went there, but from that, but look at what came of it. You actually made the movie.
Well, but it's pretty sad state of affairs that you have to
Of
almost
course.
try to kill yourself in order to get a movie financed.
I mean, most people say that metaphorically.
Yeah.
You actually
Lived it.
are living proof of
Yeah.
that. So when you are making this movie, there's obviously a lot more on the line for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I believed in the project very, very much. It's a story that we don't see made in this country very often. I don't remember the last time we made a movie like this.
And for people that don't know, what is what's the elevator pitch here?
The story is basically a family in their parents in their early 80s who invite their 3 daughters who are in their 40s to their place to celebrate their anniversary, to discover that the father has terminal brain cancer.
Oh boy.
And that he wants to spend the weekend trying to bring his daughters back together again. They've been apart for many years and he wants to fix it. And over the course of the weekend, we discover each sister has a secret.
Wow.
And the rest I can't tell you because
Sure, I don't want to
it'll blow
spoil
the
it.
movie.
Yeah.
But it's played in over 30 film festivals. I've had actually more love outside of Canada than I have in Canada, which it does not surprise me. But I thought it was a TIFF film. I thought it was a VIF film. None of them programmed the film, partially because I think the subject matter is pretty dark, but also I'm a 62-year-old white Jewish man.
You are 62?
62.
Jesus, look at this guy.
But,
I would have never guessed that. If you put a
What would you have guessed? What do you guess?
I don't know. He's
Like
just
50,
like one,
right?
He's just like one of these ageless guys that I like to consider
'Cause he's-
myself to be like that as well.
He's kind of cool,
He's
right?
got the same kind of genetics, I
He's
guess.
got the nail
No, but
polish
he's
and the
just
tats,
cool.
and he's got this cool like rock star
Got
vibe.
full head
the
of hair.
piercing. He's got
full
the
head of hair. Yeah.
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 Just a cool dude.
But I mean, I had to make this movie and
I'm so happy you did.
I'm glad I did. And if I never make another movie again, I got to make this one
tell
on
you-
my terms too.
I can relate on certain levels to what you're talking about. Obviously, the emotional stress of doing this, I can definitely relate to. But for Jack of all trades, just to bring that up, like I thought that's a TIFF movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't get in.
No.
I thought it was like, this is a no-brainer. Like, it wasn't.
No, but I mean, these films the films that are getting picked for these festivals, it's checking boxes. And,
Could be, yeah.
And it's the same way funding is happening, which is why I started my podcast, to basically get about a 20,000 pound weight off my chest about what's happening and where it's going, and talking to people who are fighting the good fight to make content in this country and outside this country. And I just am, godsmacked that really great scripts that I get an opportunity to read that people share with me are not getting financed, are not getting made. But I also feel like, my mantra is no is not an option. If you're going to get told no by the funders, well, then what's the other option to get the film made? And clearly in your world, you found, the ability to go and make movies in Manitoba. and it's a welcoming place to go make movies. They're great creatives.
Even
there.
though they stole all of our gear, but yes.
Yes, that's right. They stole, even though they stole your gear,
Yes.
you still found a way to make your movie.
Yes.
Which
yes.
some still think is a marketing ploy. 'Cause the movie was called Bandits.
We're not that smart.
No. No. I mean, listen, it's not the first time this has happened to somebody, and it won't be the last.
Especially in Winnipeg.
Especially in Winnipeg. People have to pay rent there. Come on.
As you mentioned, listen, we had to come up with our own Goonies treasure map to try to make this movie. And we ended up in Winnipeg several times now.
Yeah.
But I haven't yet to take $1 from Telefilm for anything.
Yeah.
And we've now made like 9 movies.
Yeah.
We're on our way to Federgreen type numbers. But no one is. But it's remarkable too in that sense, not in a Trump remarkable way, but it's remarkable in a sense that we are able to do it, and I do marvel at it. And sometimes I do think like, wow, I can't believe we accomplished this.
Right.
But like, if you're a filmmaker in Canada, like you're not going to get that pat on the back.
No.
Nobody gives a fuck.
No.
And you're not it's sort of a thankless thing. Like people don't realize the blood, sweat, and tears, literal tears that you go to make these movies at this level. It's twice, 3 times, 4 times the amount of work. I went on a set to visit, a buddy who was making a low budget indie film. They had a $30 million budget.
$30 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's considered low budget now.
Right. That's crazy.
And I was telling him like, their catering budget is more than I had to make the movie.
Right.
And, but we're resourceful. We're resourceful people. But at some point it's just like, you're a business guy.
Yeah.
You own labels and distributor and you're all these different hats that you wear. Is there can you put yourself in their shoes of I try to, the profitability, I guess, that it is a movie business. Yeah. So if a script doesn't, how can you determine whether one of these sort of scripts that should be made, is there a path to profit?
Well, look, if you make genre movies at the low budget, and I'm talking under 300, then you can make money. Because of that 300, you're probably getting 40% of that money in tax credits.
Yep.
So you're only needing to raise, in 300, you're raising basically like 210,000, which isn't a lot of money. But if you include reinvestment and things like that and be really smart about how you put it all together, you're not raising a ton of equity. You could do one pre-sale potentially between a pre-sale, your tax credits, and you're basically financed, and reinvestment, you're financed.
And by reinvestment, for people who don't know, that means we don't get paid for the movie.
Right. But we do that with the idea that we're going to get paid on the back end.
Yes.
Right?
Which, does that ever happen? I don't know.
Well,
yet.
it happens on my genre movies.
Well,
right?
I'm working with the wrong people.
I mean, I've of all the genre movies I've made in the last 10 years, I've made money on every single one.
That's
of them.
great.
Right.
Good for you, man.
But it's a method to the madness. And, I talk about it all the time. How do you do this? I show people, how do you do this? And it's not, you have to have a really good stomach to be able to do it, but you can do it. And you can do it successfully. And you're telling the stories that you want to tell. But
like a movie about a guy, an 80-year-old guy with a secret brain cancer.
Yeah,
that
movie's not going to make that movie's not going to
movie.
No, I mean that's a movie that I
genre
do out
is
of
heartbreak.
Yeah, and it's I mean, fortunately for me, I pre-sold it to 2 broadcasters in Canada.
Which ones?
Super Channel and Hollywood Suites, which I love both very much. But outside of Canada, I got a U.S. distributor who's going to release it day and date with me in Canada.
Wow!
But finding, and I've now about to sign a deal with a distributor in the Nordic countries who's going to release the film in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland, same day and date with me. Did I get any money for that? No, but I'm going to put it in front of people, which is important.
Eyeballs,
right? And so, my father-in-law knew going in that he likely wouldn't get his full money back, but he didn't care. He believed in the project. He believed in me, and we made this movie. Drama doesn't sell. Let's be honest. It just doesn't. Not, even if you have cast it's a hard sell.
Yeah.
So you have to make elevated thriller, genre, heist movies, things like that, which, you know, you and Jason do quite often. And I'm now making and have been for the last 10 years to pay the bills.
Yeah. Well, you know, listen, for a horror movie specifically, you know, people go to horror movies to see a horror movie. You don't need a famous person to be in a horror movie.
No, you don't.
You just need, you know,
it's concept
a
and
concept.
execution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the more sort of like loud your horror movie is, the more of a chance you have for it to quote unquote get some viral attention.
Yeah.
And, you know, then you're off to the races. But it's just like, that's a formula that I just said out loud.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that formula now. So there's so many. Even in that space now, it's so crowded.
No, but here's the problem.
Okay.
Most of them have, you know, you read their script, they have more holes than Swiss cheese.
Sure.
They don't develop, they've forgotten how to develop a script properly.
Right.
Like, I won't make a script, I won't shoot a script until it's there, until I show it to sales companies to tell me, can you sell this?
Right.
I'm making my films for sales but also that have to be really good, that the genre audience is going to go to.
Right.
The genre audience is one of the most intelligent audiences out there. They know what they like.
Yep.
And I know what they like. And I'm not going to make stuff that they don't like because I'm not going to get into genre film festivals, which for the genre is super important that you get into a Fantasia or a Fantastic Fest or Sitges, or the festivals like that, because that triggers sales company interest.
Yeah.
And so I'm making strong script movies for a small budget that are geared to sales.
Smart. I mean, I've not gotten a film into the Fantasia, but, you know, the guys at Black Fawn, who I'm sure you know them, those guys sort of wrote the blueprint on this type of filmmaking.
Right.
So when you go there and you show your movie, let's just say at Fantasia.
Yeah.
So some sales agent comes up to you afterwards and is like, "Hey, Avi, let's talk."
I mean, I generally have a sales company attached before I even go to those festivals because I know the good sales companies, and they watch my film and they go, "Holy smokes, I want in," and I get them in before I even make the movie because they'll give us notes that they know the buyers are going to trigger on, right? Maybe the gag needs to change a little bit. Maybe the protagonist needs to change a little bit. Whatever the case may be, we're making the script stronger with their input, but also we know that we can. I mean, every single genre movie I've made has sold to Shudder.
Wow, there you go. I'm doing something wrong here. I gotta speak to him off the air.
Well, how do we get a Stu Stone, Avi Federgreen collaboration? And throw in Adam, of course, but also this guy Jason I just learned about.
Sorry, Adam. I meant to say Adam, not Jason.
You're thinking horror movies.
The guy who played the killer in Scarecrows was Jason. I thought that's who he was referring to.
Scarecrows.
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
another
He's playing
title.
3D chess with us.
Yeah, there's another title. That was one of your early ones.
Yes. And we probably, you know, the first movie we made for like $100,000.
Right.
And it was like, we thought, you know, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, what the fuck? Holy shit, this is hard. But like when we put it out, it's like people watch it and the critics, or I guess you call it online critics, they're watching it and comparing it to Universal movies.
Yeah.
You know, they're comparing it to $100 million movies. They don't realize.
Right.
It's like if they knew, then would they judge it differently? But I don't think it matters. At the end of the day,
it doesn't matter.
It's kind of like, I take it as a compliment. If you know, good review, bad review, the fact that they're reviewing it and comparing it to those movies means that it like passed the smell test.
Passed the smell test, the mustard. Yes, totally.
So it was like, oh, they didn't even realize that this is a $100,000 movie.
If you look at most of the films that get into Fantasia, Fantastic Fest, Sitges, most of them are made for ultra low budget.
Yeah.
And
micro budget.
Like micro budget.
Yes.
And they're all winning awards. They're getting on Shudder. I mean, most of the films on Shudder are low budget movies.
And there's just so many cool things that you can pick up just as a filmmaker. Like, it's hard for me to watch a movie now.
Yeah.
Obviously, for my whole life, it's been hard for me to, you know, separate myself and watch it like a real, unplug and watch it like a real audience member.
Right.
And I'm always trying to pick apart, they look what they did, look what they didn't do.
Right.
But, when you watch these movies that we're speaking of right now, the ones that get it, that really are great, it's just so spectacular to see when people pull things off that are just, holy shit, I can't believe these guys pulled this off. Right. And then you appreciate it even more.
Right. And I mean, look, it's again, like a number of the genre films I've used non-union actors.
Of course, yeah.
Because I can. But in genre, there's an amazing talent pool of and I'm not suggesting that you use non-actor members, but it's an alternative to make an ultra low budget movie.
But it also saves you like 30%.
Well, it does, because unfortunately the union here does not think the same as SAG does in the US when it comes to ultra low budget. The rates here are not a deal. Like, they're just not. And your budget, it's probably a good, 25% of your budget goes to cast on a ultra low budget movie. And that's a big pill to swallow. I would hire ACTRA always if I can. But if I can't, I have an alternative, especially for genre. In drama, I would never do it. I would always hire ACTRA. But in genre, you have some flexibility to what you do.
Yeah, the first two movies that we did were both non-union.
Right.
And I actually, that was my, I was directing these movies.
Right.
And I actually really I enjoyed it.
Right.
I loved working with, like, the raw talent. Right. I loved being with, like, this clay that, like, was looking for someone to help shape it.
Yeah.
And I felt like, getting good performances out of these actors was such a victory.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it happens in the edit room.
Yeah, 100%.
But a lot of it happens on set too. And and you have people that could have such bright futures. What happens if this so-and-so ends up going on to become such and such?
Right.
It's like, this is where they got their start. There's a pride to it, you know?
Right.
But I did notice, when we did Vandits, that was ACTRA, and all of a sudden we're working with, Jan Arden and Rob Wells and Enrico Colantoni, and it's like, holy shit, this is what I've been missing out on. Right. Like, now you're with people that you don't have to teach them to hit their mark, to find their light, to, it's like people who know what's going on. Right. It's a different world.
Right.
And the performances are just like, it's more of a collaboration when you're working with them.
I totally agree.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree.
I feel like I'm more of a teacher or a professor when we're working with the non-union.
Yeah.
And I'm more of a collaborator. Totally. Just like they're giving me a performance and I'm giving them, like, little sprinkles to put on top to make it even a little bit more.
100%. But depending on the budget of your film, you've got to go in a certain direction.
Of course.
So you just have to adapt.
But Toronto specifically, Vancouver maybe as well, but Toronto is a great place. It's not like it was when I was a kid actor, where there was only 6 kids in the whole city. I was the guy with brown hair. So there was a blonde kid, a brown hair kid, a redhead. That was it. Yeah. But now, there's 4,000 kids that are, it's not the same. No. But the opportunities are still here. Mm-hmm. And, if you can somehow get through the self-tape world of, 5,000 people submitting for every role, there is opportunities here, especially in films like that 5-7 Films makes, or what Avi's doing. Yeah. There's probably another handful of producers that we could shout out if we wanted to be nice, but we won't be. But there's people out there making stuff like we are that do provide opportunities. And you know what? It's really cool that I didn't know this about you, that you had this backstory to your film. It's incredible. And I would say that I can relate on going back to how this whole rant started, that I can relate on the emotional level, not necessarily the this is it, I'm ready to get out of here. Yeah. But, having to, the vulnerability of doing the jack of all trades and allowing, the dirty laundry to sort of be aired, and having a moment where I'm going to confront my father for the first time in my life, and have cameras rolling. Right. It was an emotional thing to do. It was very difficult to do. And part of it was maybe even easier to do because I wasn't fully present. Well, but you do you know what I mean by that?
I mean, you completely exposed yourself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The night that you have to sort of do that.
Yeah. And I mean, part of the Home Free story is, a lot has to do with my some of it is very relatable to me.
Right.
Because, back in 2002, I tried to kill myself. I was going through a horrible divorce, wasn't working, put the car in the garage, wrote notes to my kids.
Oh, God.
And said goodbye and basically phoned some friends to basically say goodbye without saying goodbye. Two of my friends figured out what was going on. They called 911. Next thing you know, I'm in St. Joe's Hospital and not dead.
Wow. It's like you're supposed to be here, man.
I know. So you think that way, but it's hard. And when you have anxiety and depression, and part of the reason why I tell my story at screenings is I would bet there's 25 to 40% of the audience that are fighting demons just like me, but don't have it in them to expose their illness
right
to themselves, but also to family and friends. And what's interesting that I think is super, what I've gotten the most out of this movie is I had a programmer who programmed the film at a festival who came up to me and said, thank you for making this film. I've been holding a secret my entire life.
Oh boy.
And she was in her late 60s. And she said after watching the film, she called a family meeting and she told her secret to her family.
Do you know what the secret was?
I don't. And I wasn't going to delve into it.
Sure.
But the fact that my movie affected somebody's life in that way.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you feel like you said it so perfectly.
Right.
Whatever you're going through, and someone who's listening to this, whatever you're going through that you think is so isolated to you is not. Like, I didn't speak to my father for 100 years.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people would write me that they did the exact same thing happened to them. Yeah. Like, doing movies like this and telling the story is just a way of sort of normalizing it in a way, or making you feel normal for things that you should feel abnormal about.
And I say this all the time, the power that we have as film or TV creators to affect change is something that nobody will ever be able will ever take away from us. And we don't tell enough stories that can affect change. And if my movie can save one person's life, or my story can change one person's life, then I've done exactly what I've done my job.
So are you now like past this type of...
I fight the demons every day.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday was a very emotionally bad day for me. I'm on medication. I see a therapist, a psychotherapist. And
Is that something you've done for a long time?
I've been doing it for the last, I don't know, before COVID.
Oh, even before COVID.
Yeah. And, but it was really bad the summer of 2022 when I got the rejection. That was sort of the icing on the cake for me.
So like your road back from that to where we are right now?
It's still a road that I'm going to be continually on, that everybody that fights anxiety, depression, or whatever is like, everything's a Band-Aid. Like, you have to do the work, which I do, but you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. Yeah. And, I've committed myself to the industry that I love so much. I want to collaborate more with people. As you know, producing a movie is a lot of work. Doing it by myself is just painful.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also have at least another good 20 years in me to do this. And I want to do it with other people that are like-minded, that want to make stories that they want to tell without encumbrances from people that don't know how to make good films.
Are you somebody that you put yourself, I mean, you definitely have put yourself out there with guys like me and Adam. I know we've come early in our career to seek advice from you and stuff like that. But like, are you open for business?
I'm open for business. I mean, the great thing is I've created a studio scenario because I can trigger distribution.
Great.
I can trigger...
Which triggers tax credits.
Yes. And the other thing, which I'm going to announce right here, right now, is that hopefully before TIFF, I will be also classified an alternative broadcaster, which is the same as Crave.
Wow.
Because I'm opening up a VOD channel that is going to not only play IndieCans films, but other distributors' films for rent or purchase. and I will be able to trigger web series content, television broadcast content, whatever, because I will be classified as an alternative broadcaster.
Wow. See, now it's very smart. That's creating your own opportunities.
Well, I got to say, the recording date may be different than the publication date, but this is the 20th anniversary of the first YouTube upload. Do you know this, Avi?
No, I
You've
don't.
made this announcement on the 20th anniversary of the first upload to YouTube.
Wow.
And
That's
I feel
incredible.
like we're on this is the same as like Stu is honored to be in the conversation with his budget of 100,000. He's in the same game as these guys with multi-million-dollar budgets. You're in the Crave universe now. Like you're right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did the homework, spoke to the tax credit department. It's all legit. I just have to prove that this is happening.
I mean, you are playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers.
But honestly, like, you have to maneuver the industry, and I'll be the only distributor in Canada that's offering this kind of a service. We're not talking a YouTube service. We're talking about transactional e-commerce VOD for
Sure.
rent or buy.
Okay, yeah.
And the great thing about my platform is you can't download it, which means you can't rip it. You can buy it. You can play it as many times as you want on the site, but you can never download it. You can never rip it, which means that the monetization of the film stays with the platform.
What's the name of the platform?
That
It's called
is-
Unleashed.
No, it's. I mean,
Should
I
be.
haven't come up with the name yet, but I'm thinking of something like Fandom, maybe. I'm not sure yet. Maybe there'll be a contest on Toronto Mike. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I
Like
mean,
whoever names it gets like their movie financed.
partially financed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Avi can trigger your tax credits.
But I mean, what's great about what I've built is that I can distribute now then alternative broadcast, but also I have the facility to interim finance paper.
You've also eliminated like having to,
I don't have to go to
eliminated-
a bank.
Yeah, you've eliminated a lot of hoops
Yeah.
to jump through. You've
So-
you've made your own hula hoops.
Yeah. My own hula hoops. Funny.
That's the name of the VOD chat. Hula hoop.
I just won.
Stu just won.
But it is actually like, I as someone who's like in the trenches, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, and it's pretty smart. It's obviously smart. Obviously, best of luck on that venture. I think that you've got a really cool thing going. Now, I'm curious,
Yeah.
but I don't know when this is going to air. But there is
It might air today.
Okay, well, there's an election.
Now that I think about
there's
it.
an election coming up,
Yeah.
and at the time that we're sitting here having this conversation,
Yeah.
there's an election coming up in Canada.
Yeah.
And as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
and as somebody of the faith that you are, you
Yeah.
might be conflicted on what
I'm
to
not
do here.
conflicted at all.
Okay, but is there because so much of what we do is subsidized? Are you worried about what could happen if
Yes,
if
I am, but also I'm also a father. I'm a husband. And I have a daughter who's queer. I look at it beyond just the industry. I look at it from the big picture, and I would say that one party has got my full support, and that's the Liberal Party. And they support the tax credit system. They've supported it their entire administration. They support the CBC, which I think is extremely important to us as Canadians, as our sort of news, our go-to news source. It's the heart of our country. They, when Gord Downey was dying and they had their final concert, who broadcast that?
Yeah.
CBC. They are in the cultural industry. And
so if the Liberals were not to win, do you think CBC would go away?
100%.
100%.
Well, it would
100%.
definitely change, right?
CBC radio would probably exist.
Agree.
But CBC television would be gone.
Like what would happen? Like Channel 6 is just not.
They would the PC government, the CC government.
Yeah,
whatever,
I corrected him earlier. It's
the
not the PC
It's the
party.
Conservative
Party of Canada.
That's right. The CPC will eliminate CBC. Yeah.
And by eliminate, like they're like.
They want to defund it.
Like
They're
no more government money
no more
for
government
the CBC.
money, which means they won't exist.
Yeah, how would they exist?
Well, they have to support themselves on their ads. Like when I watch CBC TV, I still see ads.
Which they would basically, it would become a news service, maybe sports. That's it. Drama, comedy, whatever would be gone.
No more. This hour
Now-
has 22 minutes.
And to be honest, I mean, do I believe in the CPC party? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah,
CPC.
CPC. I still believe that Poilievre is anti-Semite.
Really?
I think he supports Israel. I think it's like Trump. I think Trump is an anti-Semite. I think he supports Israel, but I don't think he supports Jews in general. I don't. I think it's all smoke and mirrors for vote.
I mean,
it's all about the vote.
Politicians be politicking.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I it's a scary thing to think of that like there would be no CBC. Not that I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go watch Street Legal at 7.
Yeah.
But you know, there is a part of the whole. There is a you know like.
But when we were kids,
that's
we
what I'm
were
saying.
watching
Yeah,
CBC.
Sure.
Yeah.
There is a
I like the
Hockey
Cynthia
night in
Dale.
Canada.
Did you catch the Cynthia Dale shout out he just did?
Yes.
Very
Yes,
stealthily.
for sure.
Did you get that? Okay.
That's right.
but you know, Hockey Night in Canada and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The Friendly Giant.
Friendly Giant. Yeah.
Mr. Dress Up.
Yeah.
You know, they were giving TV Ontario a run for their money.
Yeah.
But is TV Ontario also funded by?
No, that's
they're
by the
funded
province.
province.
Ah, got it.
Which has also lost a bunch of funding from the Ford government. They are struggling. They're axing lots and lots of programs that were staples as part of.
But it feels like traditional TV is like, you know, our age.
Yeah.
And you know, my age and above, and your age and your age. We still come from the TV era.
Yeah.
But like the young people under us don't even know what a TV is.
No.
So does that worry you as far as being a content creator, or there's just different platforms that you're going to have to figure out?
I mean, we all know that certain broadcasters broadcast certain things. If we have a show that we would pitch to CBC, then we would pitch to CBC. They also have, you know, their own web VOD platform, Gem, which takes Canadian cinema, which would probably be gone as well, which is another place that we would lose our ability to showcase our films.
Yeah.
So, you know, the young people of today, if they don't know about CBC television, if you're a sports fan, you definitely know about CBC television. But if you're not a sports fan, then you might know CBC Gem. And, you know, I think it's our responsibility as parents to educate our children to understand that we do have a national broadcaster like PBS exists in the U.S. And I think that, you know, we need to encourage the continuation of this important broadcaster.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of, you know, like if I was to ask my nieces or nephews, like name a CBC show, like they wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
But they would know Schitt's Creek.
They would know Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
But I would have to tell them that it was on CBC because they probably watch it on like YouTube or Crave. But my point is that it's just, I don't know what the future looks like.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Because
listen,
like cinema, people don't go to the movies like they used to.
No.
People don't consume television like they used to. And, you know, therefore the advertisers aren't what they used to be. The budgets are going, it's like almost like making low budget movies. We're training for what's going to happen in the future.
Right. But I mean, again, that's why we make stuff that we know, we aim at, we find out from the sales companies what are the buyers buying, and that's the kind of stuff that we have to make, or we're never going to be able to make any money.
Right.
Right. And it, you know, every you know, party has a platform, and they're politicians, so they can say whatever they want to say, but they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And Trump has completely proven that all the things that he said, he's done the exact opposite of what he's done. And I don't trust any politician to save my life, but what's the best of the worst and what's going to save our industry for sure that I can guarantee, and that would be the Liberal Party.
Well, I guess we'll have to see what happens. To be continued.
To be continued.
Monday night on CBC television.
Is that
That's
when
right.
it is?
Yes.
Monday, yeah.
Monday. Vote.
28th.
Everybody's got to vote.
Have you voted yet, Avi?
I'm voting on election day. I always do. That's a
see,
tradition of mine. Yeah.
I get that, except I always wonder, what if that day there's something, a kid breaks an arm or something? You know what I mean?
Ben,
So I get it.
My kid can wait. Go sit on your bed and I'll give you a lollipop. But
I hear you.
to vote.
I always wonder, like, for the audience, like for some of the shows on CBC, like I'm not going to name names, but because I don't know them, but there's shows, and I would say that. Like, is it like the CFL where, like, in Toronto we don't really like know what's going on, but if you went to Calgary or Regina, like, it's
yes,
packed?
Heartland and
That's
things.
what I'm
Yes,
saying.
these
So
are
it's
big. Or who's the mysteries?
Murdoch.
Murdoch Mysteries, of
Yeah.
course, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the big popular show, as far as I know, amongst the CBC heads out there, is Son of a Critch.
Yes.
Like, this is like the Wonder Years
Yeah.
if
Sure.
it were a Canadian show in Newfoundland.
But I'm saying, like, there is, like, maybe here we're not. In Toronto,
Right.
we're like a snobby or
Yeah.
something. But like if I went to
There's a bit of that.
Saskatoon, there's people tuning in to
well,
watch.
like the Rita McNeil specials
Sure.
were very big in Canada, but people in Toronto would be like, not watching
No, I mean,
this.
it's all, remember, the CBC funds a lot of shows based on regionalism, right? So every region, like Jan Arden's show was shot in Alberta.
right.
Little
Little Mosque on the Prairie.
Mosque on the Prairie was shot in Saskatchewan. And I would say that the most domestic production happens in Toronto for sure. Not a lot of domestic production happens in Vancouver, including indie film, because it's a very union province, and
it's
they
also
do a
like
lot of service
Hallmark
production,
movies and stuff.
mostly Hallmark stuff.
Yeah, like Toronto had Kim's Convenience, which was very popular.
Kim's Convenience,
Yeah, that was a huge show.
huge show.
So you would think that like this, they had these Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience are great examples that CBC would be flushed with profits. Like they have these hits, but I guess it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way because a lot of those shows they get paid for by, tax credits and license fees and government funding. But internationally, are they making boatloads of money? Are the producers seeing boatloads of money coming from foreign?
That was like
watchers?
Beachcombers and Danger Bay.
Yeah.
We used to hear how popular it was in
Yeah,
like
totally.
Germany or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different market now. They're not necessarily buying CanCon outside of Canada.
Is there going to be rule changes to CanCon to like? Because I always hear that the broadcasters are trying to push because they're trying to.
Well, Crave for sure is, which is why they're not necessarily called a broadcaster now. They're called an alternative broadcaster, which is in the same tone as Netflix is called an alternative broadcaster, and Apple is called an alternative broadcaster.
So that means they don't have to abide by the same rules.
Pretty much.
But they do still do the Shoresy, Letterkenny stuff. That's coming out of Crave.
Yeah.
Seems
But-
like Crave probably does a decent job despite the fact that they don't have to. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would
Just
say
those are like shows I know people love.
Dark
and
Side of
those
the
are,
Ring, that's on Crave.
Dark Side of the Ring, fantastic program.
That's on Crave as well. So they do have some Canadian offerings for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, it's tough.
There's still a percentage, but the broadcasters fought for a smaller percentage of CanCon and they won. And they're trying to erode away the percentage of CanCon on their channels. And I'm hoping that the CRTC gave them this one little gift and that they won't give them any more gifts when it comes to that kind of scenario. Or we will lose more and more Canadian shows. They won't get made anymore.
No. And it's crazy. Like we do live in a country where subsidies literally prop up the entire arts community. It's not just films and television, it's music.
Yep.
Every aspect of it.
Imagine trying to make a movie without tax incentives.
You wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
And it's funny because we talk about tax credits, and people who are listening to your show probably know what a tax credit is. So because they're listening to your show, but for people who don't, who are sitting across from us, people
but I
still
also listen to the show.
Okay, good. People have to pay the taxes for the. It's like when we're paying high taxes in Canada, we're part of that is going towards what we're talking about.
Right.
Like these tax credits is not just money that's invented out of thin air.
The tax credits go towards we're hiring actual Canadians to do the work.
Yes.
And by doing so, we're getting a benefit.
Yes.
But also, what isn't understood is how much money is being spent in the various jurisdictions in order to make those shows. The bars, the restaurants,
Sure.
the catering companies, the lumber yards, all these things that are benefiting from production.
Yeah.
And, we don't get any tax credits on goods. We only get tax credits
Labor.
on labor.
Yep.
So I think that's an important note.
Yes.
Where you have to hire Canadian.
Yes.
And we support that. Our friends are, we work with Canadians all the time exclusively. There isn't one crew member on my show or cast member, maybe one non-Canadian on the odd time that's a cast member, but 99% of the other actors are Canadian and 100% of the crew are Canadian, and post-production is 100% Canadian.
Yeah.
Can I ask on our way out here, Avi and Stu, just one thing you guys seem to have in common, I wonder if you could speak to is, Avi, you mentioned Hollywood Suite.
Yes.
Okay. And I happen to know because I go to every Stu Stone, Adam Rodness 5-7 Films production I can. I see the logo for Hollywood Suite, and I can watch it on Hollywood Suite.
Yeah.
So can you share with me maybe what role Hollywood Suite plays in sharing such important Canadian art like what you're doing, Avi, and what you're doing, Stu?
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, Hollywood Suite was not something that maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, people weren't looking at them the way that we were. And I give credit to Adam, my partner, who, when we were, everyone's pitching to Crave and everyone's pitching to Super Channel, which was having some problems at that point. There's not a lot of places to go. And Hollywood Suite was like sort of this like new kid at the dance that like people weren't asking to dance. And we knew that the creatives there were really cool people, like Quincy, who you brought up, or maybe you brought up, maybe I'm thinking of a different conversation, but Quincy Rabi is there, who was at Vice for a long time. You have David Kynes, who was, the heartbeat of Much for so long. You have these people that sort of get it. And so when Adam and I always pitch like these out of the box kind of like crazy ideas. And we found like that they were so responsive and so excited that somebody wanted to come and dance with them.
Yeah.
So it really opened it up a whole new lane for Adam and I. We got in early with them, and I'm so happy we did. They've been incredible broadcast partners for us. There's obviously other it's a competitive space, but they do have a great library of films and a ton of Canadian films. Yeah.
And I mean, listen, there's the two people that I deal the most, the three people I deal the most with is obviously David Kynes, but also Sharon Stevens.
Of course, Sharon's
and
the best.
Suzanne.
Yeah.
Marshall, who, have been big supporters of me and my distribution company, but also they came on board Home Free as the second window broadcaster.
They're fantastic.
And they're fantastic. And they're the love
they're the cool kids, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
They're not suits. Like they're cool. Like Quincy's an artist. It's like when she's not working on Hollywood Suite, she's painting and doing art. And when David Kynes is not sitting in the boardroom in the executive room, he's like listening to cool alternative records or
my podcast.
Your podcast. It's like these are people who are really cool.
And remember, David comes from Much Music.
Yeah.
Right. And a little plug for David Kynes. I'm producing a documentary called Gods of Radio about 70s Canadian rock bands. And David was kind enough to sit in front of the camera to talk about the 70s music era.
He remembers it?
He remembers it. He wasn't.
But if you remember it, you weren't there.
Well, exactly. Anyways, listen, Stu, dude, we need to make a movie together.
Sure.
There's no question about it.
Well, when you can hire some union actors.
Listen.
I'm just kidding.
I think we should collaborate on a project for sure. But thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and talk to me. And
when I heard that you were doing a show and Mike brought it up to me, it was like a no-brainer for me. Obviously, you are a guy that's at the forefront of the fight. You have been for a long time. The output of Avi Federgreen is unmatched by anybody on earth. He has literally like more. His resume reads like a Cheesecake Factory menu. Lots going on there, but to come here and learn more about your story and learn more about what you've gone through in the last many years. It's tough for me to hear that. Someone that I respect so much that's gone through this stuff, and I appreciate your honesty and your transparency. And I think that, I wish you all the best with the projects that you're working on, and keep fighting the good fight. No matter what happens in the election, I'm sure you'll be okay. But it's been great to get a chance to talk to you beyond, the few times that me and Avi have met. We're talking business.
Yeah.
It's been nice to get to hear your story. So congrats on everything.
I appreciate it. And listen, a big shout out to Adam out there.
Yes.
Who, one of these days we got to get him in front of Toronto Mike.
Yes.
He's got to come here, and it can't be as Stu says, the Sonny and Cher show.
No.
It's probably got to be the Adam show.
Yeah.
So Adam, if you're listening, you need to get your tuchus here. Okay.
He does. He definitely does.
Anyways, thank you again, Stu, for being here.
Appreciate
thank you, Mike, for producing this show. Thank you, everybody out there that's listening.
Yes.
To episode 3 of Unleashed.
More to come.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye.
Every time they look at us, we'll blow.